Welcome to the 1 Million Years of Joy podcast. I'm Dr. Andrea Benaker, your host, and my intention is to inspire you to find more joy in your life through the stories from our guests and the science on joy and purpose. I'm delighted to introduce you to Jake Groshong. As Chief Executive Officer of the Playing for Change Foundation, Jake builds and nurtures partnerships with artists, brands, partners, and supporters worldwide. He joined Playing for Change Foundation in 2019, and he has been integral to initiatives with the UNFPA, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, iHeartRadio, Hard Rock, and many more. Under his leadership, the scope and size of Playing for Change Foundation has more than tripled across the globe, while bringing in new artist ambassadors, including Pharrell Williams, Shakira, Louis Fonsi, Brandi Carlile, and dozens more. Simultaneously, he collaborates with partner organizations to support and grow Playing for Change Foundation's more than 50 locations across 17 countries. Jake, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here.
So Jake, before we dive into the topic of joy, tell us more about the foundation that you're acting as a CEO for and the absolutely amazing things that I keep hearing about it.
Yeah, I feel so lucky. I really have my dream job. I get to run an organization that works around the globe in 17 different countries, helping kids rise up through their own culture. So we take kids in very difficult circumstances, often refugees or those living in slums, and we provide education through music and culture. And we design every single one of these programs and schools differently because designed individually for that culture, for those kids, to help them identify through who they are rather than through who we are, which is a common approach. And our results are really unparalleled in terms of the futures that come from the kids that participate in our programs, what they discover, where they go to college, the future careers, everything is enhanced to a really incredible degree when you're able to first identify yourself and your pride, your self-esteem, and also your understanding of your culture and history as you move on through your educational process. It's extraordinary what can happen.
And tell us more about the dimension of culture and what you've actually learned about key differences, particularly as it relates to joy, since this is one of the topics we're going to be talking about, joy and the connection with music. What have you learned from all these journeys across so many different countries?
Yeah, what I tell people is that music is our only truly universal language. We all speak music, everyone around the world. Even if you just listen to it as you're watching a movie, like music is so impactful in your life every single day. And we all understand it, no matter what. We can hear a drum beat and immediately we feel something within ourselves. The reality is that when you insert music into difficult situations, often hopeless feeling situations, you have that spark, you have that key to then begin creating change and creating impact. And that breeds joy. It breeds the ability to start feeling happiness again and wanting to spread that to the rest of your community, the rest of your country, and the rest of the world.
And that actually brings me to the topic of your own purpose. Right? Tell us how you found your purpose and basically share with us whether that was a very lengthy process or not.
It's always a journey for all of us and it continues on. I won't say we've ever truly found it. I think we keep striving for it, but we do find that place where we can make a difference and have our presence create change. And I think I first felt that I lived for a year in the Middle East and I taught Israeli and Palestinian kids, how to get along together, with music and theater. I worked for Josh Groban's foundation and helped kids through music and other arts disciplines across the United States and Canada. But when I got the opportunity to work with Playing for Change, it was a completely different level of personal growth and impact for me that I guess unlocked what I felt was my potential. I'd always been somewhat of a nonprofit entrepreneur. I'd always taken things from the ground and built them into something, impressive and exceptional. And I really pride myself on that. But when it comes to the work of Playing for Change, I became such a true believer in the work on a level that I never have before, because I was able to see the impact immediately across the globe. And there's just nothing else like it. And I think that that's what's led to my personal joy, is knowing that I'm able to do something and grow something that is real, that is true, that is powerful. I get to feed off that energy, and strive harder every day because of it.
And tell us about some of the most recent events that the foundation has been involved in. I know there's a recent event that happened where Pink was there. There was also another
Sure.
event in Morocco. There's so much activity and so many great initiatives that the
Yeah.
foundation is involved in. Tell us a little
Yeah.
bit more about those opportunities and how
Yeah.
they're
I mean,
changing basically people's lives.
we're in 17 countries, so it's a constant, activities and events happening. Some of the most exciting recently, just last week, we opened a program officially on the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. It's our first United States-based program. This is the poorest community in all of North America. The average annual salary there is around $8,000. They have about an 80% unemployment rate. I mean, it's a really difficult area. And this is within our own country. And we partnered with the First Peoples Fund there to open a brand new music and arts program for the Oglala Lakota tribe. And it's truly exceptional, the impact that this is going to have. When you have a teen suicide rate that's 5 times the national average, this kind of program is not only vital, it actually saves lives. And that's just launched last week. So we're very proud of that. I just got back from Jordan. We're going to be opening a new program there in the Zatari refugee camp, which is Syrian refugees. I'm very excited about that program, just partnering with some local NGOs to create something magical in refugee camp. We also have a great refugee program in Uganda for South Sudanese refugees. And that program's already grown and extraordinary. And I'm excited to have that kind of impact again in Jordan. But yeah, we did an event with Pink a couple months ago. That was an incredible event that was based around professional tennis players and musicians coming together. We do a lot of those sorts of things. We just had our gala last week where we honored Maluma for his impact. And we're opening schools with him in Miami. We already have another program in Miami opening up this year with DJ Khaled's foundation, which is exciting. We have a program in Colombia with Shakira's foundation. We're creating these partnerships where major artists who want to do good have a pipeline to do that because we're the experts in this sort of work, and we're able to help musicians who want to impact the world through music to do it in the best way possible.
I know that you also have that music vibe within you. You're also an artist. Can you
Sure.
tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I grew up, my parents both went to the Eastman School of Music. My dad played oboe, my mom was a flute player, and they went on to become an attorney and a therapist, but they played music my entire upbringing, in orchestras, and would travel and play, and it was just a major part of my life. And I picked up the oboe as well and got to school on a music scholarship playing oboe. But then in college, I got very into guitar and drums and a whole bunch of other instruments and just sort of learned to play a bunch of things. And that took me into playing in bands. And then that eventually I got into musical theater, basically, is where that led. And I was a musical theater performer for many years. I opened up my own theater in Seattle. That was quite a thing. And I now still a theater producer in my spare time on Broadway. So I actually have a show opening next week.
I know you have 2 kids.
I
Have
do.
they been extensively exposed to your passion for music and also impact
Yeah,
that
absolutely. It's really important to me. We live in Orange County in California. It's a very different world from the places that I get to work in. And it's really important to me to expose my kids to the other side of the world. In fact, I took my son to Uganda over the summer when he was 8, and we visited that refugee camp. And it was a really impactful experience for him. Now, he also got a lot of incredible attention from these kids because it kind of goes both ways. And cultural exchange is a huge part of what we do. It opens up our eyes, not only for my son to understand the side of the world, but for also these kids to understand the other side of the world. They've never been exposed to a boy from America before. And it was really something magical to see where you have these two cultures coming together, but finding such immediate common ground where they just want to play and sing and dance. And immediately there's a connection where, oh, there's more out there for me. And I think that goes when we do any kind of cultural collaboration.
It's so beautiful. And the power of music that you described earlier as the universal language, it's so true in so many ways. And there's even music therapy for individuals that may have specific
Absolutely.
emotional, mental challenges. And the power of music is absolutely incredible. Even for kids, research has indicated that kids that are learning an instrument or playing an instrument while in school, they actually do better in school just because of the changes that happen at the level of their brain. And I was just curious, do you explore those dimensions of science beyond
Mhm.
the universality of the positive impact of music? And have you seen concrete also impact in these specific areas in terms of education and far
Yeah.
broader?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every one of our programs, our kids excel at a different level academically when they participate in the program. It can be really drastic. In fact, in Mali, where our program is in Karina, when we started the program 10 years ago in Mali, the average graduation rate where they take a test and they go on to secondary education around 15, 16, the average graduation rate in the community we work in was around 13%. And now with our program 10 years on, the kids who participate in our program, the average graduation rate is 84%, right? So that's just one example over 10 years of the impact that this kind of program can have around the globe. And that's really the only change in that community, just that we came in, we gave kids a desire to succeed educationally, and it's working. But, it's not just education as well. We're actually using music as the key to solve the problems each community is facing. So in Mali, their issue really was kids getting educated where they can actually advance their community forward and advance their families forward. We're doing that there. But you take a place like in Nepal, where we have a ton of programming, their big issue was sex trafficking. We had all these kids in the communities getting into that world, right? Where they had all these sex traffickers coming in, convincing parents to give their kids away. It was a huge, huge issue, especially in eastern Nepal, where we have a really large program. And there we had a bunch of mothers come together of the kids that we have as our students. And they formed something called the Mother Society. And they worked with us to develop programming where they could tour from village to village, community and city through music and theater and dance. And they created their own programming where they're teaching the dangers of sex trafficking, what to watch out for. And that's been extraordinarily successful. We've saved many, many lives in that region. They also, in Nepal, they had a big issue around girls going to school when they were menstruating. They just weren't allowed. And we had to figure out a reusable pad situation that we then provided and then taught girls and boys about menstruation, that it's not something to fear. And now girls going to school full time. Whatever the issue is, whether it's gang violence in Brazil, the drug trade in Mexico, or the environment in Morocco, we're just tackling it. But we just start with music. Because once you have music, everyone come together around something, right? When you think about a concert for a major artist out there, think about the crowd. It can be made up of any type of person. But in that moment, they all have one goal. And we just use that concept to get everyone in a community around problem solving. And to this point, it works far better than anything else I've ever experienced.
Congratulations on all these amazing things that you've just shared. Where do you see the future of the foundation?
We have 50 locations across the globe right now in those 17 countries. I think in the next 5 years, we could probably triple or quadruple that with the growth we're doing right now. We've opened up in 5 new countries in the last year and a half. And I have at least another 1 or 2 to go this year. So I think because of our success and our funding success, where we have really expanded our network and community on that side, I think that we can continue to grow at a pretty exponential level, but with being very careful at the same time. One thing I'm always cautious of is making sure we're never overexpanding and that every program we design has a coalition built around it. Every program we build also has a local NGO partner, that we're never fully responsible financially, that we're finding other partners before we even launch something. Because the other key to us is we've never closed a program before. We never want to. Once we open a program, it becomes a necessity to that community. So we have to ensure that it is endowed for the long term. But I do think in the next few years, yeah, we can easily have 100, 150 locations around the globe.
So let's talk now about your joy, your life, and how potentially your perspective on joy has evolved with time if you look at the younger version of yourself.
I think one of the things that you get perspective on when you get to travel around and be exposed to other cultures is a sense of peace, right? That I have seen enough. I have done enough. I now want to help others experience that. And that's really what drives me, is getting other people to experience the joy that I've been lucky enough to have. My younger self would have been very selfish, right? It would have been something that's very like, I want to experience this, I want to experience that. But now it's like, no, I want these people to experience this. That's what I care about. And that just keeps growing year to year, where the more we can expose other people to incredible experiences and awareness of the world and other cultures because we have so much to learn from other cultures. I learned so much when I travel about everything from, what we're eating to how we're raising our kids to how we're playing sports. Like every detail is just other cultures have answers that we can learn from. So I just try to expose others to celebrating other cultures rather than trying to say we're right about anything. Because it doesn't matter if we're right. What matters is if we're learning.
And tell us about some of the most striking lessons that you've learned across all these experiences as it relates specifically to joy.
Yeah, it's funny, when you think about the average American kid, you think about, things like toys and sports and kind of always wanting more sort of our material possessions or the things that bring joy as a child. And you see kids in other countries that are just effervescent in joy, right? Like they exude it and they have nothing, right? And there's just lessons to be learned about what is the thing that actually creates joy for kids. And it's not the thing in their hand. It's not some tactile, toy they get to play with. It's the community that's built around them. These kids have families, they have whole communities supporting their upbringing. And I think something that we've lost a lot in this country is that it takes a village mentality. And the more that we can build that up and understand that community is so vital, the stronger our next generation is going to be. And that's something I really carry with me for my kids, but also try to spread, with my family and other people I know, that community is vital. And it's something we've lost a lot of here. And it's something that we've let something like political differences get in the way of, or just belief in different things. The fact is we lose a lot of the truth that we have so much more in common. And I think that if we can show more of the world to everyone and how similar we are, even to a Syrian refugee, we start to understand that we can solve problems. We don't have to just sit in them and fight for them. We can actually solve them.
Talking about solving problems and bringing more joy to this world, more peace, more harmony, what do you think we would need to do collectively? I know you spoke about the community piece. Any specific insights that our audience could walk away with in terms of your perspective on how we can bring more joy to this world?
Yeah, obviously I work in music and culture, right? That's my belief, is that music and culture have that ability to bring joy to the world. It's something that we've lost a lot of in our classrooms and something we need to bring back as much as possible because of all the impact that we both talked about. But we also need to celebrate culturally who we are and where we come from, and celebrate other people's culture and who they are and where they come from. The more that we can be exposed to other communities, the more tolerant we become, the more interested in learning we become. That's our goal, is to just say, be proud of who you are and where you come from, and then share that with the world.
And it's also about ensuring that certain cultures or practices, let's just say, are maintained through generations.
Exactly.
Right?
That's right. Yeah. So it's the idea that we're not going to lose this history, this knowledge that has lifted a community for sometimes thousands of years. We're not going to allow it to be lost. And in fact, we're going to help the next generation make it even stronger.
If there would be something that you could change from your past, would you change anything?
I don't think so. I mean, we all need both good and bad experiences. The bad is the best part. That's where we learn. That's where we learn how to be a better person, how to ensure that we don't repeat our mistakes. That's the most important stuff. The good should happen to everyone. I hope everyone has, nothing but wonderful experience. But at the same time, the bad is what defines us. So having difficult experiences that we go through, we get to choose if that's going to make us stronger, if we're going to fold. And the more that we can get through something, the better off we're going to be moving forward. Now, that's not to say we all, need to get cancer or something. It's to say that if we can embrace a challenge and try to solve a problem, it will inevitably make us a better and stronger person.
I fully agree. And it's really about embracing the realities that life, comes with ups and downs, and how we actually rise up from those low points that actually define us and that allow us to become even more resilient in the future. You mentioned earlier that you lived in Israel. Can you share with us more about that experience and how it has shaped key perspectives on your life?
I was a kid out of college, maybe a year out of college, and I got a grant to go live and work over there. And I lived in the middle of the desert, and I was able to do some community work, also performed all around the region and made some connections with other people who were in a very similar situation I was at that time. And it was a very defining experience for me to understand the power of culture, to understand that we're capable of experiencing great difficulty and overcome it. We're capable of being under threat or fear and still finding tremendous joy. I would say that in that situation, you're in an area that has no long-term solution of peace whatsoever. It's going to take generations. But at the same time, there is tremendous joy. There's tremendous output of work and life and different cultures trying to figure it out. And even though they can't yet, it feels like they will. It's just going to take time. And the more that people are able to understand each other's cultures, the more people are going to be forgiving of mistakes, the more they're going to be able to move on and find solutions. So it was just very defining for me. I think that I learned a lot of lessons that I still grapple with to this day.
And when we talk about joy, there's also the reality that comes with joy, which is about awe. And given all the countries you visited and all the people that you've met, can you share one moment of deep awe that was really profound for you?
It's hard to define one, but the first that comes to mind, we threw this cultural music festival in Morocco. We have a school in Mohammed Ghazlain, which is like one of the final oasis towns on the Sahara Desert, community that's been really forgotten and underserved for a long time. And we threw a festival there for the community. And there were protests because people thought, well, there was a guy in the community that basically bought off other people to protest around the idea that music didn't matter, that they should be focusing on other things. And this happened during a festival where we had, a few thousand people out there in the community. They came in very loud. They tried to shout over everything. And I saw all these people just create walls and barriers and sing along with everything that was going on stage, to where the protesters were completely drowned out, and to where the next day they one by one came and apologized to our administrator there, saying that experience alone helped us understand the power of what you're doing. And it's just a matter of when you are able to see it and experience and hear it and feel it, you're suddenly able to figure out that, oh, this is a way we all have common ground. And if you have that common ground, you can actually get along with your worst enemy, right? It's just about that entry point. So that's all to say that I'm really proud of the work we do. And I think that the more people over time that we're showing the power of what we do to, the more we keep growing. And eventually, this is going to be something, I'm hoping, in every country around the globe.
I hope so too. And do you envision actually to have more initiatives that will be expanded across North America or the US?
Yeah. I mean, we're opening 2 in Miami this year. We have 1 in South Dakota. So those are our first 3 programs in the United States. We'll certainly expand into other cities starting next year. But that's a big start for us. And we're really excited to see how they go and keep them growing.
And from all these travels, what has been one of your favorite countries?
Oh, that's so hard to pick. I think like every country we work in is so magical in its own right. It's very difficult to say there's one that's my favorite. And I wouldn't want to even put that out there, because I would never want anyone to feel like their country wasn't my favorite. I would say really every country, every region we work in has its own level of magic and beauty and culture that I just want to share with the world. So I don't think I could ever just pick one.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I loved your answer.
Yeah.
And in fact, there's magic and beauty everywhere we go, even
Of
within our
course.
communities. And often we forget that. And by forgetting that, we actually lose the opportunity to experience joy, no matter where we may be, no matter what conditions we may be exposed to today or whatever struggles we may be experiencing. And you mentioned earlier the power of music and how actually can bring everyone together. And by finding commonalities rather than always looking at the differences that we have with other people, whether it is within our immediate communities or communities or different cultures around the world, seeking and looking for that commonality and having that curiosity to find the common ground, I think could be so powerful in so many ways, whether it's, as I said, in our communities or even within organizations.
That's exactly right. I think that we as a society just need to strive, instead of highlighting differences, we need to strive to find common ground. We need to strive on what we agree upon, and then we can tackle the differences.
So, any final thoughts that you may have on creating more joy and experiencing more joy for the younger generations and even individuals that may be looking for a path to pursue? I mean, you've had a very beautiful career, and seems like a lot of the exciting things that you've shared ahead are just going to be monumental in terms of positive impact. Any specific perspectives that you may want to share on joy before we end this?
It's so funny that joy is the focus of this, because we actually had a summer camp that we called Joy that we hosted in Miami. It's called the Joy Creators Camp for kids that we did last summer and was exceptional. When we use joy, because that's what we should be looking toward providing for our next generation. We should be looking to empower kids to experience joy as much as possible, where they're able to create their own joy rather than having it being provided for them. And I think that that's in the end what creates that power and magic of what we do. For anyone that wants to do this type of thing and get into this type of creation, there are so many incredible people out there doing this work. There's so many incredible organizations. We know we do it in music education, but someone might want to do it in helping refugees. They might want to do it in providing Doctors Without Borders. I mean, it could be anything. Whatever it is, reach out, because we're always looking. We're always looking for partners and people that want to get involved, figuring out solutions around the globe to provide new programs. I think if there's one thing I've learned in my career, just don't hesitate to ask, because the reality is people want to help. If I can help you get somewhere in your career, I'm going to want to help you. I think people feed off of helping other people, and we don't get enough opportunities to do it. And people ask me like how I'm able to ask others for money, right, to do what we do. And my answer is always back to them like, well, do you get offended if someone asks you for money to do something they're passionate about and believe in? Because I don't. Like, when someone asks me for money, like, if I can provide, please. Like, I would love to help out, especially if it's a person that I'm very close with and believe in. I think we just need to get away from the fear of asking for help. And that's the message I'll leave you with.
Thank you so much, Jake. It's been an immense pleasure to speak with you today. And I wish you continued success in all the beautiful things that you're doing.
Thanks so much, Andrea. It's been such a pleasure.